because we will focus on talent, on culture, but also on the new creative codes. So please welcome here on stage Alizée Verstraeten, creative strategist and founder of What's Trending Tomorrow.
All right, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Alizée. I'm a creative strategist and founder of the platform What's Trending Tomorrow. I work at the intersection of data, fashion, and culture, where I talk about mainly the undercurrents that are really shaping culture today. I'm the one who dares to ask the questions that traditional media outlets might not really dare to ask. And today's panel is all about talents, but not in a nostalgic or romantic way. In basically an age of AI, algorithms, technology, what does talent actually mean now? And it kind of feels like the definition of talent was completely different 5 years ago as to what it is today. Now, what I love about this panel is that we have 3 very different relationships to talent. One who builds it, one who teaches it, and one who actually protects and champions it from the inside out. So let me introduce to you who we have here today. First one is Moritz. Moritz is a Berlin-based fashion designer who built his brand organically while still being at university. His work is highly visual and digital and also unapologetically queer, which we love. He represents what it looks like to grow a creative practice from the inside out today. Welcome, Moritz.
Hi.
Then secondly, here on the left-hand side, we have Gemma. Gemma is vice dean of the Berlin School of Business and Innovation, and she comes from both an industry and education point of view. She's worked across digital transformation, e-com, and innovation, and now really sits at that intersection of how talent is trained and what the industry actually needs today. Welcome, Gemma.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And then thirdly, we have Sara. Sara has spent over 30 years shaping and supporting fashion talent, from Italian Vogue to finding Vogue talents, to now also being the creative director of Fondazione Sozzani, and also being the international new talent and brand ambassador of Milan Fashion Week. She brings long-term vision, responsibility, and really a deep understanding of what truly lasts in this industry. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you.
All right, so everyone ready to get into it? In a world that's shaped by AI platforms and constant change, the definition feels very, very different of what talent is. From where you stand, guys, what does talent actually mean today? And Moritz, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nowadays, I feel like there's so many people that create, that put things out there, and really having your own vision, having your own references, having an idea of what you like outside of fashion is incredibly important to kind of build a vision, to create, to put out that is unique.
Definitely. Amazing. What about you?
Well, for me, it's right now, especially in this political and socially moment, it's about storytelling and it's about bringing your vision and your values until the end. It's not just about clothing, but it's about a story. And it's very important to create awareness and consciousness to consumers. So it's something more, it's much more about than clothing, but it's education and creating really awareness in all its forms through the creativity of all these designers.
Definitely. I feel like today, like talent isn't just about standing out, right? It's really about standing for something. Is that something that you agree with as well?
Okay. For me, for example, what we have to understand today that there's tension, you know. So the new talent has to deal with tension. The tension with a world that used to be global, that now is fragmented as the economy. And the other part is that hyper-digitalization of the Gen Z, for example. Consider that the Gen Z today is a quarter of part of the population. And this quarter of the part of the population will be in 2030, like almost 30% of the people working. From these 30% of the people working, probably 40% will be involved in the creative industry. And they are not entering into the big corporations as we know. they are going to enter into totally different companies that nowadays they are suffering like probably the fourth digital transformation. So the next talent has to be able to develop skill to work with this tension, the tension of a company that used to work in a global way, now is fragmented, and a company that has to protect the human craftsmanship with technology that comes with agency.
Definitely. I feel like we live in a very interesting time where the next generation is kind of getting into the gig economy, which this, I mean, like they have almost 2 or 3 jobs, right? Not just to make enough money, but also to support your creative vision. Moritz, I know you have also like worked several jobs and now finally focusing full time on the brand. How was that? Like trying to combine everything?
It's super interesting because when you build a brand, you're like a one-man show and you have to do so many jobs. Like you said, it's not just designing and creating, it's being a social media manager, it's being a sales and distributions manager, being an e-commerce manager. Like you do everything by yourself at one point. So I used to work for different brands in the past where I learned all of these skills, which is very crucial now that I actually need them for my own brand, and I actually make a lot less mistakes. So getting that experience that they don't teach you in school, that you can really only learn on the job or with the internet. Like a lot of the things that I know, I learned through the internet is honestly my biggest teacher. YouTube, there's so many resources out there that can teach you. You just have to know what to look for.
Definitely. Sarah, do you also feel like with having that eye on emerging talents, do you feel like they're so like differently skilled and have so many different things that they can do outside of fashion?
Well, I mean, the fashion industry, the beauty of it is that it's a very huge creative business. And when I go and see a lot of students that come out from fashion schools and they're fashion designers, I mean, I know it doesn't seem so much encouraging, but the thing is that you don't have to become, you know, a designer or go and work for a brand, but there is so many ways to express your creativity, because I do think that today it's not just building a brand, but it's building a project, which is the fact of sending messages. And as we were talking about, is that, I mean, there has to be a message. It's not just the sake of doing clothes. You don't do clothes just because, I mean, you love doing clothes, but I think also the messages, our responsibility is not just productive, it's socially, ethically, political. So I do think this is very important. And also the values that you have are extremely important, because obviously the market, it's huge. There's a lot of competition. And right now the fashion industry is not the right place to get into it. But the fact, as we as older generation, we need to support the new generation who's our future, but at the same time make them understand that there are different paths that they can start. And it's not just the classic path, because the industry right now, it's not sustainable economically and productive. So the new generation, it comes naturally that they don't want to be part of it, but they want to be part of another community
100%.
and also another economical system.
100%. Gemma, for you then personally, like, I think you see students using AI every day, right? But often I feel like, especially being a student, you use it very functionally, like ChatGPT, maybe to write some like specific things for school or whatever. But how do you feel like we should move from AI as a shortcut, right, to save time, to AI more so as a creative partner? What do you think needs to change in how we think and not just how we use it?
Yeah, this is the question, and I love the question. Because you can imagine in the last 1 year and a half, not 2 years, but 1 year and a half, all the students that in our case, they come from almost 100 nationalities. So I can see how people coming from India, from Turkey, from Iran, from Spain, Barcelona, where I am, France, etc., Italy, they use in a quite different way ChatGPT and etc. So I'm learning with them. My message always with them is really clear. It's like, first we have to start with a simple thing that was called brainstorming. Remember, that was invented in the 1920s by Oxford. So we have to pick, again, the brainstorming. And nowadays, for example, what I'm trying to do with them is to change the methodology and try to enter into those simple brainstormings that all of us will learn, the use of generative AI tools, because it's not about to domain the tool, as you know, and this is also something that we experience when the social media appears, that every one of us, we were like totally obsessed in getting the domain of Google Analytics, HubSpot, etc., all the different digital marketing tools. But nowadays, it's not that you have to be excellent, in getting a PhD in using generative AI. It's how you use it. So you have to think first. Yeah. So now for me, it's more important to put it in the classes again. Platon, Aristotle, whatever, thinkers, and the discussion. And when you start with the discussion and the critique, then when you enter your idea inside of the generative AI, and when the prop shows you something to you, you have to be critical with that. Yeah. And I think it's fantastic because something also that I say to them that you are really, really, really lucky. Because most of us, when we were doing the assessment, remember how many books you have to go and you have to ask some friend, please provide me this book, etc. But nowadays everything is there, so it saves you a lot of time, and also what it provides you is a superior creativity. You know why? Because do you remember Dr. Ricardo Baeza? That's one of the, he works a lot in Barcelona. This is why I know him. He's one of the best thinkers in AI. And he always talks about the intelligence, the collective of the intelligence of the collective, because it's one part of his books. And for me, it's something like that. We are all together now, and imagine we enter all together to ChatGPT and we start with the prompts. So the creativity goes into a superior level. Yeah. So this is one thing that I found it fantastic. And you have to think like that, not something like is there like a tool.
Yeah.
It's something to create a work that is superior to you.
Definitely. I do feel like I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because I feel like creativity has definitely increased, but at the same time, I feel like we also live in a day and age where there's massive homogenization of creativity and people coming out with similar collections or similar reference points, because people are grabbing the same inspiration from all the same platforms. Sara, do you feel like that's something you're seeing a lot within talents now, that things are starting to look alike, or not so much?
I wouldn't say so. No. I think it's interesting to see that I saw more an homologation before rather than now, because I do think that nowadays the new generation are kind of pushed for the fact of making real change for what has been left from the industry and in general around the world. So they are really experimenting in different ways, and obviously technology is fundamental, but what really worries me, and it's not my field, about artificial intelligence is more about the new generation that has to come, because the ones that maybe are seated here, I know a few designers here, know perfectly how to use it, because they were already of another generation that knew of how to do creativity without the support of artificial intelligence, and they know how to use it in a way to kind of pull out steps of overproduction that maybe before with no technology they couldn't. So they can really, use the technology to make it better. But what I'm worried about, it's more about the new generation maybe that not even born right now, that they find themselves with all this technology, very easy access, without not really knowing, to learn. So I think that's why we as a foundation, for us, education, it's not happening just in school, which obviously is fundamental, but we are very clearly know that there are so many people that do not have access to education. So it's important that for designers such as you and others, if they create their project, it's not just for the sake of appearing or being one man or themselves, but about encouraging to think the new generation and say, okay, I'm doing this because I want to, support the rights of people that do not have, or other meaningful things. So I do think this is, important. So I don't see so much homologation. I more see homologation on big brands rather than the new generation.
Yeah, definitely. Moritz, do you feel like you already work a lot with AI, of course? Do you feel like in the visual space and where you are right now, do you kind of use like your personal tools, like in regards to AI and like your visual identity? How do you make sure that it doesn't let it dictate your visual aesthetic or identity? And is it difficult?
It's interesting. I learned without AI. So the graphics that I make are usually made without AI, but I mean, it's coming if you want it or not. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just coming and we have to like kind of use it as a tool. And Tashkin was talking about it earlier. You can use the tool to make something generic, and you can use the tool to make something incredibly unique and incredibly forward-thinking. You just have to know how to use it properly. I'm still very much experimenting. I mean, I'm with the new generation. I'm learning as we go, and you can do so much with the programs. Like, there's so much you can learn, and there's just a million possibilities.
Definitely. A bit back on, Sarah, what you said, and also Moritz. I feel like there's so many ethical considerations, and especially the next generation being very aware of that, right? What are some of the potential pitfalls that people getting into AI, getting into the creative industry, should proactively really navigate? Gemma, maybe you can start some of the things that you tell students to really look out for when using AI and technology.
Excuse me, can you rephrase me?
Of course.
What's in my wall?
No. So we are all aware of like the ethical considerations that come with using AI and the potential pitfalls that probably most of us have experienced. For that next generation and those young designers, what are the things that you think they should be aware of and that they can proactively navigate?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Allow me that data, you know, like something that you have to control is data, not just your data, but for example, think that we are in the second or third phase of data. It means that ChatGPT was having a first level of data, you know, that quality data that comes from all our brains, yes, all our works or the work from previous people. Now it's arriving in a moment that is getting scarce, yes. So we will enter into another phase that is happening now, that generative AI is looking for another level of data. So here you have different approaches. First, to understand how the machine grabs that data. Second, to understand how you provide that data. And third, how we are going to use that content and data. This is, for me, one of the challenges, to understand how you are going to add value to the machine. Got it? Because the value that you provide to the machine will be the value that the machine put it back to you.
100%. I can agree more. Sarah, if it comes down to like young creatives, me included, I feel like enormous pressure and also doing like lots of research and kind of the things that they're dealing with. There's enormous pressure about like, I don't know, having quick success, about monetizing, about like even going viral, which sounds silly, but it is part of building a business, unfortunately or luckily. From your experience, what's the biggest lie young talent believes about success today, you think?
The biggest lie. Thank you for the question. And the biggest lie, it's looking too much to the fashion system itself, because they are kind of lying to themselves of something that they don't want to kind of approach or think that, the whole concept of the crisis, it's not a critic, but it's kind of actual, the fact that they knew that this was coming. It's not that they didn't know and they just pretend that that was not happening, that it was normal to put high prices on things that before were at the same cost, the same bag, and now from, I don't know, 3,000, you go to 5,000 and you have the same thing. So that was probably the biggest lie, and a famous CEO even admitted it, which I don't know if it was a bigger idea to say it, but because in the end you cannot go backwards. So I do think that I always say to the young generation is, yeah, listen to people, but in the end don't listen, because it's your project. It's what you really believe in. It's your values. It's what you're studied for, what you really willing to do. It's your process, your passion, your obsession. So I think that you have to, go straight forward and don't be afraid to fall or to fail, because that's the really big lie of it. Because everyone fell, everyone failed, which fall and fail, yeah, they're big words. But I think that if this doesn't happen, it's because you haven't tried, or you haven't jumped, or you haven't even had the courage or boldness of really trying, which is not, I'm saying it's bad if you didn't, but not pointing out, but here there's a couple of designers that I know very well. They launched their own brand, they tried, they had difficulties, they relaunched it, and they're based in Milan, now they moved to Berlin, they're evolving. So the thing is, I mean, don't think that if your brand doesn't work, it means that you're failing or it's not working. It means that maybe you have to accept the changes of time and think about, since you are creative people, to say, okay, this maybe is not working for many reasons, and just put yourself questions and think, okay, but I'm a creative person. How can I do it in a different way? Technology can be a solution. Social responsibility can be a solution. So I do think that that's very important, always to question yourself, but doesn't mean to put doubts on yourself. Just question if I'm doing enough and if I'm doing the right thing, which you are, but maybe you just need to change a little bit the perspective.
Amazing. I love that.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of
Honestly,
course.
failing is such a huge part of what we do, especially as fashion designers. To the outside, it always looks perfect, and that's also our job, to make everything look pretty and perfect. But the amount of times I failed, and the amount of times I was told no, and the amount of times that something just did not work out the way I had planned it to be. And usually I look back on it now, and I'm so thankful for it happening. And honestly, the first few times that happens, it's like world crushing. You think everything's over, but it's going to happen a million more times, and the future is full of failures. But it also gets easier. Like, the more you fail, the easier it gets. It's just like a little bit of redirection.
Definitely. I feel like also one big tip that I got and also learned from lots of people in the fashion industry is, don't take anything personal. It's not about you, it's about the work. And that's something I take with me every day. Moritz, so you also feel like that's something...
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Your name is on it. You put so much of yourself into it. Personally, I put so much of my own emotions, so much of my own personal feelings. Like, everything I breathe is this brand, and everything I do, it's so personal. So when you're being told no, it's hard to not take that personally. And also when people don't like your work, which will happen inevitably. If you do something good, people won't like it. That's so crucial. But I mean, the more it happens, the easier it gets, and the more you can kind of distance your personal value from your brand's value as well.
Definitely. So then I have a little bit of a case study that I want to ask to all of you, which is like, that all sounds great. And yes, you have to keep on fighting and keep on going. But ultimately, we need to pay our rent, right? We need to make sure that there's actually food on the table. What would be one tip if someone would come up to you and they would say, like, I don't want to sell my soul, but I do need to pay rent in the end. What would you actually tell them to do then?
Shall we?
Sorry.
Well, yesterday that we were talking with Dr. Gigi, I don't know if she's here, hello, Dr. Gigi, from Institut Français de la Mode. Value. I come from a country, as you know, that has Sara Inditex group, and they have it really clear how to make money. Like, it's the big difference between the luxury and the retail. So value, you have to understand the business. There's no shortcut. Yeah, so sometimes when I'm in classes and people has an amazing talent, really creative, we have to put ourselves the homeworks. The homeworks is called economics value. In the text group, they know the game. They know so well the game that nowadays what happened is that the luxury fashion brands, they were really challenged. Yesterday, for example, with Dr. Gigi, we were mentioning like when you are in the best streets of Barcelona, of Madrid, the flagships of Zara, they are even better than Gucci. Even better in quality, customer attention, etc. So if I'm a new creative designer that enters in the game, you have to understand where is your coin, which is your business model. Your business model is how you make money. And it will appear, you know what I mean? It will appear. Sometimes you make those mistakes, but it's not a mistake, it's because you don't know. You need to learn. And sooner or later, it appears. And we have to understand that the business nowadays is changing. We have another way of making money. And another thing that we have to have clear is that still we have, because it's written in the books, that as creative people, we'll be making money because I enter into Gucci or I enter into Dior. This is not going to be the case in most of our world, yes? So it means that you have to find your way to create value for society, for that economy, to enter. Because, for example, in Barcelona, as you know, there's a hub from Mango. And there, what they are doing is also they enter startups. You understand my point here? That they continue doing the global business, but also what they adopt is talent that comes from different ideas and different technologies. So your startup, maybe at this moment, it's something that doesn't have value, but someone can also find a big value, and in a sudden you become a super talent for that industry. Well, I'm always optimist.
What about you?
I was thinking about it earlier, and I mean, it's great when we do these like elaborate pieces that are super show-stopping and wow. But when it really boils down to it, when we have to pay rent, it's usually about creating the most value with the least amount of work. So, what can you make that is easy for you, that you can reproduce, that has high impact, high value, that people love, and what is the product that you can make of it? Like, take your idea and turn it into a product. You need to sell, you know? And what is accessible to people? What do people want in their day-to-day life? Like, and what don't they have already, you know?
Definitely. I feel like there's also a really interesting balance between kind of the projects or the products that you create that actually sell, like the scalability of it, and then the projects or the pieces you create that you're really passionate about.
Yes.
Is that something that you also like experience a lot, Moritz?
For sure. And both are very, very important. So like they're equally as important because usually these showpieces, these super intense like works of art almost, like they're so important to tell the story of your brand, and they're also important to kind of communicate the value of your brand. If you only sell t-shirts, you're a t-shirt brand, you know what I mean? And at the same time, the product is just as important. The t-shirt has to be incredible for you to be able to sell it. And it's just, yeah, you have to put equal amounts of work into it.
Of course, definitely. All right, and final question to all of you. If you could speak to your 20-year-old self, right? Go back in time. For some, it might be a bit longer ago than for others. What is one thing you would tell them not to rush? And maybe we can start with you, Sarah.
To myself,
Yeah.
not to rush.
Yes.
Well, I was lucky enough that I started working mid-90s, so there was not all this technology.
Yeah.
So to myself, I would say, well, I wished I wouldn't be so kind of obsessed about technology and the phone and everything, and try to live it a little bit more smoother. I mean, it's, I'm happy with what I do. Maybe there are things that I didn't do that I would do, but I would do exactly the same things I doing now. And going back to the question before, because you were asking how you get, food on the table, and well, you said it. You had different types of work. So I think if you are passionate, you can find other ways to get money. But for me, I'm a little bit more kind of with no compromises. There's no more time to have compromises, I think, because especially for your project, I mean, it's that. And then you have to make choices. I mean, you cannot be everywhere. I mean, do you want to go and work for a high street brand? It's a choice. But if you have other values, that's not the solution. So I think this is extremely important because we are many in the world. So it's not just about seeing who's bigger, but think about what you want to be and what you want to become. And then those brands are going to come to you, and it's not vice versa, because we've been always used to that we have to go and knock to big brands and all of those, but it's them that they need you and not vice versa. You need them just for about money, but money can be done also in different ways.
I find that a really, really interesting one, because there's one mantra I always live by, which is like, longevity is the name of the game, right? Based on the decisions that you make, you think strategically of where do I want to go next instead of jumping on the biggest opportunity. Do you guys agree with that? Given as well, Sarah, I guess like that's what you were saying. Like, did you make very strategic decisions based on where you saw yourself in 5 or 10 years from now?
Myself, I see. I mean, I'm happy. I think I'm very, very lucky, and the fact that I do what I love, and also privileged. So for me, I feel it as a high responsibility of doing what I do for the next until I get annoyed, or I always say that until I learn every day. So that's why I love working with the new generation, because it's them saying we learn a lot from you, but it's not true, because I learn a lot from them, because different story, tradition, and I think that if you learn every day from the work you're doing, you're doing it in the right way. So for me, it's that, and with the foundation, it's the foundation of my family. It's about leaving a place where the new generation can feel home and have the freeness of expression, which doesn't really happen every day. So this is what I would see myself doing for the next 10 or 20 years.
I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much. Then what about you, Gemma, as well? Like, if you could tell your 20-year-old self something that you wish you would have known back then, what would it be?
You will merge with technology. Yeah, I will say that. And also something that you said that I think is interesting is it arrives one moment in your life that you have to think strategically, like not to rush, like, like first love, you understand me? Like all of us, we made that mistake, the first thing that moves around you. So think a little bit and which is going to be, your opportunity. And I continue thinking that we will merge with technologies, and it's good because we will, all of us, we aim to be better, to be excellent. So
Definitely.
Why not?
I think to merge with technology, as you said, I think education is the essence of it all, like for it to be used in the correct way. And I'm very honored to be sitting here next to you, because I feel like that's what Berlin School of Innovation is doing really well. So thank you for that. Moritz, what's one tip you would give your younger self as well?
I would honestly say not to rush life. Like it sounds a little cliche, but a lot of my 20s, I was just working constantly. And when you work constantly, suddenly you get into this hamster wheel where you work in a bubble and you just work around your work. And at one point, your work becomes redundant because you're not going out there, you're not seeing the world, you're not doing anything other than your work. So my professor once said, if you study fashion, you don't go out, you might as well not study fashion at all. And I realized that during the times where I was meeting people, interacting, making new experiences, is the time when my work was flourishing and I was actually making new things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, guys, I think if there's one thing I hope that everyone is taking away from today is that talent today is not always about being the loudest or the fastest or the most visible. I think it's about the intention, the love, the passion, the drive, and the consistency of doing what you do and loving what you do. Because I feel like, based on what you guys just said, like technology will keep evolving and like in ways that we cannot even imagine today. But human perspective and that passion and that love will be and will always be the differentiator. So thank you so much, everyone.
Can I
And
just
thank you.
add something?
Yeah, of
Always for
course.
the new generation that nobody kind of works, and you were saying like that you feel in a hamster wheel. Think about also mental health, because nobody really, because that's very important.
Yes.
Because I see many designers that get into the system and they have to try and have problems and everything, but always take care of yourself, because that's the most important. Because then if you get stressed and mental health and that, nothing works again. So that's also very important. That's why you have to keep your own pace without thinking that you have to get in an industry where the pace is lost. And I think that's important. Then once you're structured, you can decide what path you want to do, but that's also extremely important.
100%. And surround yourself with people that believe in you, that love you, and that you trust, family, friends, whatever that might be. I think that's the name of the game and one of the most important things, right?
For sure.
So yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.